Biomutant is out, and although it's received some mixed reviews all over the place, including from us, it's still an interesting one, and we know some people are going to try it out. There's quite a lot to this open world RPG, so we've got some tips for those of you looking to get started. Here are 10 things the game doesn't tell you, and some stuff that's just really helpful. So let's get started off with number 10 and talk about where to get the glider. I was going to start with the character creation tips, but we got to get real here. This is the thing that everybody actually wants to know. It's a big open world game with lots of elevation, and you're gonna want to get around faster and jump off some cliffs, and the glider isn't something you immediately get access to. In fact, it's possible to play the game for a long time without getting this essential upgrade. And the way you actually get it, like a lot of things in this game, is kind of weird. So the air glider, as it's called, is an upgrade for your automaton, the little robot cricket thing that follows you around. So to get it, you need to find mirages that are out in the world. These aren't exactly hidden, but it can take a bit of time to actually find one if you don't go out and explore and if you're sticking to the main quest. No, you gotta wander out there. Once you actually have access to the open world of the game, head north roughly towards the Tree of Life on the map, and that's pretty much the easiest way we can say to access the mirage. Basically, keep your eye out for a giant panda guy holding a lantern. He could be standing in the middle of a field on the side of the road. He might look like an NPC, but he's super important, so go after him. When you go up to it, it's gonna send you into a magic flashback. You're gonna relive some past, and you gotta do a little fight. And then afterwards, you get 4 options for how to upgrade your automaton. The bottom one is the air glider, and even though the other upgrades can be handy for combat and stuff, the glider is the one you gotta get, in our opinion. Next, over at number 9, let's talk character creation tips. They throw a lot at you at the start of the game. There's a ton of options when it comes to building your little mutant guy, and honestly, it's kind of overwhelming. What breed? What class? At the end of the day, don't stress it too much. Here's the main thing. You're gonna want to give your character stats that support whatever class you're playing. Obviously, so if you're a saboteur or a sentinel, you're gonna want to focus on strength, while if you want to be a psi-freak, it's the best to put as many points as possible into intelligence. Now, we've seen a lot of people suggest to keep your stats pretty balanced to start. It's not wrong, technically. From our experience, though, the opposite is better. This is a game where it's way better to over-specialize. On the mutate screen, you can go as crazy as you want with allocating points. The downside is that it's gonna make your character look pretty freakish, especially if you put a lot of points into intelligence, because it makes you get a big head. But that's not really that big of an issue, as we'll get into later. You can fix that. You're not totally locked in with whatever appearance your character has as a start, so don't be afraid to go with whatever stats you want. The only thing that can't be changed is your breed specifically and your class. But like we said, your breed doesn't matter too much. Just go with what you think looks the coolest, because the stat bonuses are minor at best. You beef those up later. Your class, though, determines a lot. Not just because of what equipment you start out with, that you might stick with for a little bit of the main quest, but also because every class has its own unique class perks, and some of them are really good. Next, over at number 8, like we said, you can change your appearance without changing your stats. It's possible to change your appearance after the character creation with 2 main ways to do it. There are special mutation spots hidden around the world that allow you to change your shape, and there's a barber who will change the color and pattern of your fur. The barber is pretty easy to find once you get far enough in the game. They're right outside the town of Flibberdit in the main open plains area, where you see the Tree of Life. You have to do some kind of annoying, simple side quests to unlock him as a barber, but then you can change your fur and do whatever you want. Now, the mutation spots are a little bit easier to miss. They're almost always found in the very dangerous biohazard zones, usually in the deepest parts of them, which brings us to the next point. At number 7, max out your biohazard resistance. It's as simple as that. You can spend bio points to increase your resistance to certain elements. All of them can be bad and annoying, but the first thing you're going to want to have 100% resistance to is biohazard. There's a couple reasons for this. For one, biohazard zones usually have a mutation spot, so if you want to rush to make your character look the way you actually want them to look, independent from their stats, then getting to one of these places as early as possible is a priority. But just in general, these are great locations to get a lot of bio points. These are filled with enemies that drop bio points on death, enough that you can easily recoup the cost of getting full biohazard resistance. These are the areas where you'll first have to deal with hazardous elements, fire and cold. You probably won't experience until much later once you get to those biomes, and the rewards in those places aren't as nice as the ones you get in the biohazard zones. So you see where we're going with this? Of course, you don't have to get full biohazard resistance. You can also find a biohazard suit, but switching clothes can be kind of a pain in all the menus, and it's honestly not that expensive to just max out your bio resistance, so consider it. Next at number 6, the Deadeye is almost too powerful. If you want to steamroll through this game, then go Deadeye. This class is all about ranged weapons, which are very powerful in their own right, but combine that with the unique perk they get called Sharpshooter, and they're basically unstoppable. So Sharpshooter unlocks at level 15 and costs 3 upgrade points, but it's worth it, believe us. It makes it so all two-handed guns do double damage, which is insane. That might be a little OP. What makes this even better is that guns don't really require you to put points into certain stats. If you want to go psi, you need to dump points into intelligence, and melee characters need a lot of strength. But with Deadeye, you can pretty much just use your points for whatever else you want. As long as you're willing to dig into the crafting system, you should easily be able to stay ahead of the curve with this class. Next, over at number 5, some quick psi-freak tips. Probably the most unique class in the game is the psi-freak. It's their focus on using powers over weapons that really make them stand out, kind of like a mage. It also means you gotta approach them a little bit differently. One important thing to know is that you don't have to rely exclusively on psi powers because biogenetic powers also get stronger the higher your intelligence is. So you want to be using those to shake things up as well. One really important thing to remember is that powers have no critical hit chance. Normally, you have to get the perk Mind Melt if you want any chance at all of doing critical damage. And you'll want it because even with only a 10% chance to do a crit, you'll do way more damage in the long run. Because of that, it's basically pointless to put any points into luck as a psi-freak. The critical hit chance it provides doesn't really mean anything. Probably the most frustrating thing about this class, at least as of release, is that Mind Melt is seemingly kind of bugged. It's kind of a necessary perk for these guys, but as far as I can tell, it just doesn't work at all at the moment. We're hoping that'll be fixed soon, though. That's pretty obvious. Funny thing is, though, the psi-freak's level 15 perk actually makes it one of the toughest classes in the game. Brain Drain makes it so any attack you use that does power damage restores your health by 20%. That means even above the actual tank class, the psi-freak is probably the tankiest class in the game. Next at number 4, here's a quick little thing that the game didn't tell us that we just figured out. It is actually possible to save yourself from drowning in the goo. I don't know if this is an intended feature or not, so it might be something that will always be in the game or get patched out. I don't know, but for us, it's been possible to jump out of the water and then fast travel with no consequences. Your little dude is not a very good swimmer, and if they run out of stamina on the water, then it's an instant death. So to just be able to escape your fate by jumping is pretty handy, even if it's probably not something that will come up too often for most people. Now you know. Down to number 3, let's talk the light and dark aura stuff. On top of all the other systems in the game, of course, it's got a good and evil meter. This honestly doesn't come into play for much in the game, but it is important in deciding which psi powers you get access to. Certain powers are locked unless you get enough light or dark aura, so if you're interested in playing a psi-heavy character, or at least experimenting with some cool ones, it's pretty important to know which route you want to go down. Remember, this isn't a light side, dark side meter. You get dark and light aura points separately depending on your choices. So it's totally possible to balance yourself out and have 20 light and 20 dark if you want. It's just going to take a while. But one of the main determining factors for getting these points is your dialogue choices. They're never highlighted to tell you exactly which ones are dark and which ones are light, but in general, if you say something selfish like wanting money, then you get the dark aura, and if you say something selfless, you get light aura. But it's a little awkwardly handled. It's kind of one of our other problems with the game. Usually the game puts dark choices on the left and light choices on the right, but that's not always the case. Just keep it in mind. But one of the coolest, most immediate things you get from making these decisions is, like we said, some access to a couple different cool new powers. Now down to number 2, another simple one. You can turn down the frequency of the narrator. If you're getting tired of the narrator's rambling or him constantly mentioning that it's day now or it's dark at night when the day-night cycle stuff kicks on, this is an easy fix. Just go into the system, then settings, then audio to find a heading called frequency. You can use this to turn down the narrator's comments to whatever you find more tolerable. We think the best balance is him just narrating the story and introducing new areas, but not commenting every time you pick up scrap or if it changes from day to night, stuff like that. Again, not a big issue. The creative choice of narrating is interesting, but it's an open world game, so after a while you're gonna start getting repeat messages and you get sick of it. So now you know if you want to turn them down. Now down to number 1, let's talk tribal warfare. At the start, you're forced to pick between 2 different tribes, the Myriad and the Jagni. It might seem like you're stuck with allying yourself with just these 2, but it's actually possible to join other tribes. To do it, you'll just need to explore the open world and find the other tribal capitals on your own. When you approach them, you're given the opportunity to abandon your current ally and join them. One important thing to keep in mind is that if a tribe is listed as a rival, they'll never let you join and just turn you away at the gate. Now, the reason you might want to join another tribe is to get access to their tribal weapon and armor. The only way to unlock a tribe's unique weapon is either by joining with them or by conquering them, while their armor is totally locked out unless you join with them specifically. So after you conquer 2 rival tribes, you'll get the option to, and I quote, end the war. This might seem like a good option, as it makes it seem like you don't have to conquer every other tribe in the game and speeds up the whole tribal warfare quest, but there's a big downside. If you choose it, you won't be able to get access to any of the tribal weapons of the remaining tribes. So if there's something that looks pretty cool to you, it might be a good idea to either avoid conquering 2 rivals or just keep the tribal war going, because you will miss out on some cool stuff, so consider it. But these are some Biomutant tips and tricks, things the game doesn't tell you, and some things we figured out on our own. If you are playing, we'd love to hear if you have any other tips for prospective players down in the comments. Love it or hate Biomutant, let us know what you think about it. We want to hear from you, but if this video helped you out, maybe you got some good new tips, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. And if you're new, consider subscribing, because we put out videos every single day. But hey, as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.